Okay, Ethan, thank you so much for this opportunity. It's for me wonderful to talk with you again. And I think here in Progresión, there are many, many fans of your music, of your project. So thank you so much again for the time and to answer my questions again.
Hey, thanks so much. Good to be here again.
Well, Ethan, since the last time we talk for the about the newest record of Echo Oz. But since that moment, many things has happened. You release a new record under the name of Ethan Matthews. Um, how has it been this moment in your life for creating music? How has been this moment as an inspiration for create music?
A number of different things happened the last couple of years. Kind of during the whole COVID thing, I didn't really have a whole lot of new music, and so I ended up putting out Inland Empire uh, in 2023. And I had been working on a certain amount of music, just not quite as quickly and as much music as I have in the past. This new album is about 40 minutes in length. Um, and that was kind of moving through the whole process of the last few years. But I didn't end up, I mean, one of the main things that's different is I ended up doing it all myself this time and not working with other session musicians and that sort of thing. And that's why it ended up being a solo album in some sense, but it also just kind of felt like it was time to I won't say retire the Echo Us project necessarily, but it was just time to do something different in terms of, the presentation of my music and what I've been doing. So yeah, I released it under Ethan Janais, a middle name, and put up a new website. The website, ethanjanai.com, covers a whole bunch of stuff from my past, Echo Us, all the way back to my first band that started in high school called Grey Haven, and we're actually in the that's going to be the hub of anything that I do in the future. But yeah, it has been a different a thing. This record was a much more Ultralight is the name of the record. It's much more I think atmospheric. I think there's a bit more of there's progressive elements in it, but it's more in the synth ambient, synth pop, maybe even feel to some degree, which is stuff I've dabbled with in many times in the past. So
Yes. Now that you're talking about your first project, your first band in high school, how you see your evolution as a composer, as a creator since that moment until now, until the moment that you are now?
great question. Yeah, like for me, back in high school and in my college years with Grey Haven, it was a very different thing artistically. I spent the vast majority of my time playing guitar, and my writing chops were different. They were obviously a bit more sophomoric and, oriented around what I knew at the time, which was mostly metal, with a little bit of synthesizer work thrown in, I think. But that ended up kind of becoming a big part of what the Grey Haven sound was the fact that we did have synthesizers. And uh, I literally only had one synthesizer at the time, and it was a Korg wave station, and made that entire album basically centered around some functions of that unit, along with my guitar and the other guitarist and the drummer and eventually vocalist. Um, back then I wasn't. I wrote a demo tape before that, maybe like an hour long, like a drum machine or whatever, which is what I used to get Grey Haven going in the first place, and that was a little bit more ambient, but it was all very metal back then. Maybe in the Dream Theater, Fates Warning, Queensryche area of music at the time, late 90s. And then as I moved into Echo Us, things got more synth heavy. Um, Echo Us has kind of had different periods where there's more acoustic instrumentation in some albums and less, all the way to today, which is like kind of going back to uh, a lot of more synth heavy ambient kind of stuff that maybe I experimented with at the first part of Echo S in like 2005 or so. Um, but synthesizers have always been a pretty big part of what I do. I like creating atmospheres and stuff that takes your mind in a different direction, creates images in the if you close your eyes and that sort of thing. That's the ambient music does that for me in a lot of ways, and that's why I love it. I'm not so good at making pure ambient music though, which is something that I like to do, something more along the lines of like what Steve Roach does, or maybe even some of Tangerine Dream, that kind of just really airy atmospheres with not a whole lot of like musical point to it in the sense that there's not a lot of melody and stuff like that. That's stuff I'd love to do, but I just don't, I'm a melodic composer. Um, I work things out in the studio and do them in like 1 minute chunks, usually that kind of thing. Um, and lots of overdubs and things like that. And then if I do play live, I end up presenting that live in pretty much the form it is. I don't do a lot of improvisation in the traditional sense, except for that, my approach to composition, I think, and the way things come to me, has always felt improvisatory. So, I mean, the big themes is like synthesizers, and more synthesizers, for many decades now. But yeah, I started on guitar. That's always been my principal instrument. It's probably what I'm still most adept at, as a musician. So.
Yes. You talk about this new record, Ultralight, and how different it is from the last Echo Oz record, Inland Empire. I would like to talk more about it. How different was the process for you to create that music, that new music that you released last year in October, compared with Inland Empire? How different was for you, not only the creative process, but even the moment that you are as a human being, comparing those two moments from the Echoes album and this new album, Ultralight?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about Inland Empire is it was old in the first place when it was put out. So it was an archival work. So I have to think back to 2013 when it was actually completed. And it was one of my most inspiring albums, I think, to create and more natural albums to create, similar to Ultralight. Although, I mean, Ultralight, I think, was a little bit more forced in some ways in the sense that um, I really felt like I was really grasping for musical things that I really wanted to pursue with Ultralight. Um, and it's still that way. Like I'm working on some, newer bits and chunks of music right now, and I'm extremely like picky about what I'll actually do. I just don't feel like I want to use the energy or have the energy to follow every last thing that I ever did with Echo Us. And I think that's the big difference between Ultralight and what I may do in the future and the Echo Us material is, I mean, the Echo Us material in many ways was extremely, uh, you know, going back to the improvisatory part, like I kind of just went with whatever was in my head. I didn't second guess hardly anything on those albums, save for maybe the Tide Decides, where I literally rewrote the entire album almost. But most things would just come off the top of my head, and I'd let them be. And if people think the arrangements too complicated or too notey or whatever, I'm doing this for fun. I'm doing, first thing I'm doing this for myself to make art, So that's kind of how that was. With Ultralight, I have been a bit more like, I've done so much highly complicated music that I kind of wanted to pare it down and go after some things that really energize me melodically and inspirationally, but not to embellish it too much. And Ultralight still has tons of embellishment compared to a lot of like a pop record or whatever, but it is a bit different in that sense. So I would say, compared to all the Echo Us stuff, it is a bit more pared down. It's shorter and to the point, I think. Um, yeah, and I just didn't want to spend quite as much time and energy. I mean, I'm kind of at the point in my life too where it's just like something needs to hit me pretty hard and have to really want to go after it to make it worthwhile. So yeah.
Yes, and if you listen to the record, it really feels more straight to the point in so many ways. The Ultralight. Did you conceive it as a concept album, or it was more as a collection of different compositions? And if it's a concept album, what's the concept behind it?
That's a good question because I mean, like a lot of stuff I've done in the past, there is a concept, but it's nebulous. Obviously there's the flight thing, and I don't know if you've seen the video, but it's the title track is literally about flying an ultralight aircraft. Um, but it's also got hidden meanings to it, and different meanings to it, I think, as well. Um, I think that this was very much a solo album and very introspective in a lot of ways, even though it's more straight to the point at the same time musically. Um, I think there is a concept in there. I haven't taken a ton of time to really think about it too much. Um, unlike some of the Echo Us stuff where I literally had is like with Echo Us, I would kind of have an idea, uh, almost like I want to say a rough draft, but like a script, you know, and the script would kind of guide me through the inspirational process of creating that music or an album, let's say. With this, there wasn't any script to it at all. It was just very, very vague. Um, and I've been listening to a lot different types of music too, a lot more ambient music in general. But I think in the originally I wanted to make an ambient album, and you know, I still think it is an ambient album to some degree, but it's got drums, that change. It's got intricate arrangements and stuff that supports a chorus vocal, for instance, rather than just drifting off into nebulousness like a lot of ambient music. Um, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of differences between the approach and whatnot with this one compared to a lot of the Echo S stuff.
Did you have collaborations for Ultralight, and how was those collaborations in that case?
Zero collaborations except for with I had someone master this because we put it out on LP. Normally in the past I did all my own mastering as well as mixing and all of that. And this one I just turned over to someone else. There's nothing else on it. There's another reason why it's not a joke really. I mean, Echo Us was not really meant to be about like, you know, uh Echo the band or whatever it was. It's more of like a concept project. And I mean that in terms of like it's not like I stopped using the name just because there weren't other people involved in this album. It just kind of didn't feel like it fit with the rest of the Echo Us material, if that makes sense. It just didn't feel the same. And I before I released it, I sent it to one or two friends, and they're like, "Yeah, this is not necessarily Echo Us music." So you're probably right to not release it as that. So.
A few moments ago, Ethan, you told me that this new album, Ultralight, it's like a breaking point in your way of creating music for many reasons. Um, how this album, Ultralight, is an influence in the music that you are doing now? Because you told me that you are still creating music and you are already thinking about new music. How you think that ultralight is a strong influence in the music that you want to create in the future?
Great question, and it's a tough one to answer right now because I'm still really in the beginning stages of figuring out what the heck I want to do. Um, and part of that is like literally almost every album I do, there's a few key pieces of gear, electronic equipment, could even be, as simple as an effects processor or something that I start working with differently. And like as far as taking this into the future, I don't know if there is something that's going to be specifically at all like ultralight again. Um, there could be another Echo S album in there, depending on where I go. Uh, there could be just another Ethan Janai or Ethan Janai Matthews ambient album that really does go out in that kind of direction. I'm working with a bunch of different pieces, just different uh, sections of music at this point and trying to explore things. And I'm also spending a lot of time. I think the main point is, is there any new gear that I want to buy? Because sometimes that'll be a catalyst. I've been becoming more of a Luddite, and just meaning that like, you know, older things are attracting me more, than they have in the past. whether that's like, a Wurlitzer or Rhodes piano, or the idea of like recording to analog tape again or whatever, stuff like that is really attractive to me. But I haven't made a really, really concrete decision yet, um, on where I'm going to go with that. Got to spend some money, which is always a tough part of it, especially some of this gear costs a lot these days. Uh, but I also want to make sure that I'm having fun. And sometimes the only way to do that is to get myself in a different headspace, set up my studio differently. It's the same reason why people rearrange furniture in their house. If they stay in a house for years, they rearrange the furniture. I don't do that, unfortunately, which is, I think maybe I should do that, but just to like give yourself a different space, different headspace, different visual cue when you walk in the door. It's the same thing with music, I think, on a more metaphysical level as well. Like you want to trigger something that's different. Um, and that's what I'm working on right now. I don't know how long it's going to take, though. We'll see.
Wonderful, Ethan. Well, I think I did this question the last time we have a conversation, but I would like to do it again because sometimes the perspective about this question changes. The question about what means for you to be progressive. For the albums of Echoes, you have wonderful reviews in some progressive magazines and some progressive journalists. But for you in this moment, what means to be progressive as a life attitude, more as a general, or as a box, or as a label?
Um, I Having been involved in this part of the music industry, I guess going back into the 90s, a little like late 90s, um, I feel like it's definitely at this point, as far as music as a whole goes, has just become a genre that people park themselves into because they like this or that aspect of it. They relate to the fan base for that music and they get along and that sort of thing. Um, a lot of things are, I think, in many ways more spiritual than a lot of people give them credit for. I mean, it's not just because I like this music, it's because maybe I like some of the people that are involved in it too, There's something aesthetically about it that works for me. Now, for me personally, like uh as far as being I don't know that at this point, I used to kind of believe that, always must push forward, in music uh, and art in general. But I don't necessarily agree with that in terms of like you must follow what you wanted to do, whatever that is. And it doesn't really matter if there's a dogma that seems to be attached to it or not. And I mean a dogma in terms of like this has to be like this type of album, so it will relate to this type of people, so I'm connected to these people, in a spiritual or social sense or whatever. I don't think that that's important at all. If it does work out that way, then that's great. I mean, in 2014, I a couple years before that, I'd been working on an album that was extremely complicated for me, at least. I know there's tons of musicians that do way more complicated things than even that, but my that a priori memory was an album where I kind of went all out and went back to more ambidextrous playing styles, incorporated a lot more acoustic guitar. I changed the way I was doing production. I didn't record very often to a click track in the studio. It was just very open, and a different approach, which was fun to do once, extremely exhausting for me, and able to pull it off. But I wouldn't want to do that all the time. It was just what happened at the time, and a lot of people liked that album because it did fit in the progressive rock audience. Um, I remember hearing a lot back about that album from the label I was signed to at the time and whatnot. Uh, but I don't think like you kind of just have to go after what you want. And for me, my music has always been connected to progressive rock because of Greyhaven. Um, Greyhaven kind of, I mean, we were like 18, 17 actually. Our drummer, I think, was 17 when we started that band, or we're getting close to putting out the album. I can't remember exactly the timeline, but we were all really young. And that was impressive to a lot of people. And I think it got us some notice early on in progressive rock. So I've kind of remained pretty connected to it over the years, whether I like it or not. So, yeah.
Wonderful, Ethan. Well, you already told me some things that you are thinking about the future, about your future as a composer. But I would like to change a little bit these questions about what's in the future for you. I would like to ask you instead, how would you like to see the future for you, not only as an artist, but also as a person? How would you like to see the future? How would you like to that the future will be for a person like you?
Great. Yeah. I'm definitely I'm slowing down to some degree, in terms of my musical output, which I think is fine. You just have to wait and let it happen as naturally. I've always kind of let it happen naturally. And I think I'm taking life at a similar kind of pace at this point. I'm not, when you get into your maybe late 30s up to like into your 50s, you get a little bit like I used to like to know a lot of people and so on and so forth, or as many as I could find. And I just don't care as much anymore. You become much more protective about uh, relationships of any sort that you want in your life. And so, yeah, for me, I'm taking it slower. I don't have quite as much desire, to go out and do the things full bore as I did in the past, which I think is fine. It's just a natural process. Given some changes, maybe I will go out and do live gigs again and that kind of thing again. But yeah, like I think that artistically speaking too, um, I think that's why I've been kind of, feeling much more like soundscapes and ambient music are very interesting to me again. And, it puts me in a more meditative state and able to get away from the world, which is, for me been a good thing for the past few years. Um, yeah, I think that probably one thing I also need to do is try to disconnect myself from my composing process. And however long that may take a long time, because I've been doing this for like 25, 30 years. So it becomes certain habits get inborn into you, and or just they become habit over the years. And I can feel that when I'm composing. It's just like, oh, okay, I'm doing that. Okay, that thing that I've always done. If the output of that technique or thing that I've always done is overwhelming enough that I want to work on it, then I'll do it. But if I'm really feeling like I need to change how I'm doing things and explore new, excuse me, opportunities, then I'll have to do that, and see where that goes. And if you know how long it takes for a musician, maybe in as they're a kid going into their teenage years and so on, how long it takes to learn an instrument, it does take, as you get older, it does take a little bit longer, I think, to change how you do things and discover new things because you've been doing it the same way with good output and good results for so many years, if that makes sense. So, but you have to keep things, I guess in the end, you have to keep things interesting to yourself, and so yeah, there is a slowdown right now. I can't really say why that is, if it's just, the post-COVID period or, the world changing around us and that sort of thing. Um, but yeah, I'm definitely hopeful of being able to put out some music in the future that will be markedly different from ultralight, hopefully, and probably a lot of the Echo Us stuff as well. Because I can't see going back and doing the same thing again. It's like I can't think of like my favorite albums with Echo Us, like Wake a Dream of Moving Water or Tomorrow Will Tell the Story. I love those albums. I'll even still listen to them, maybe once a year or whatever, but I could never make that music again. It's been explored and done. And it's a cliche to say this, but it really is very true. Um, that when you make things from the standpoint of, I think, more of a brute inspiration, like if I was sitting in the studio and making music for commercials or jingles or whatever, you're just going to do whatever you have to do. But when you're making it from an artistic perspective and you put so much work into something and so much intuition into something, you don't want to go back and do it again. Maybe to play it live here and there, but no, you don't want to do it again, pretty much. So hopefully, hopefully I'll figure out where I'm headed and have some new stuff within the next couple of years. So
Wonderful. Well, Ethan, I'm always grateful that you take the time to answer my questions. And since the last time we talked, and we consider as a part of the family of Progression. So I would like to ask you if you have some words for our audience, for the people that listen to your music for the first time through this radio show. Do you have some words for them?
no, just thanks for listening. I invite you to check out ethanjanai.com and become more familiar with my work if you haven't heard it before. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to what the future brings and where music goes as we move forward here.
Well, thank you so much, Ethan. Thank you very much.